Call the meeting to order at 6 p.m. and the first agenda item is the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Agenda item is correspondence, visitors, and public comments.
And no meeting.
Uh-oh. We don't have anybody online. Are we back? Okay. Next agenda item is agenda review. Julie, do you have anything?
I don't.
Good. Don't either. And then approval of the minutes for the budget input meeting in January 14th, 2025.
I'll make the motion.
Do I get a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Elaine. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Megan. Motion carries 9-0.
Those are two separate.
Yeah, I just noticed that. Then we would need a motion to accept the January 14th, 2025 minutes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Rennick.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Don. Questions, comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Megan. Motion carries 9-0. Next up, we have administrative reports. Franklin. Joyce.
Okay, good evening. So tonight, I know you've got a long agenda. Do you want to talk about highlights or just questions or?
About a couple of quick highlights, please, Joyce.
Okay, a couple quick highlights. I'll have a hard time. Okay. Well, just because we waited a number of years for it, the fire safety calendar that is an art contest open to all third graders statewide. We have entered that a number of years and never had a student recognized, so we were super happy this year to have one of our students, Felicity Plouffe, recognized, and it was really special for her and her family and our third grade teacher to go down to the State House and have that ceremony down there. So that certainly was a highlight. Another one would just quickly be the math professional development we did in January. We've been doing so much reading professional development, which I'm sure people will talk about, but I just want to point out the math. We've continued to work on real world math problem solving with Christian Quartermatch. And this past time, the focus was really on trying to help students move to more efficient strategies and anticipating ahead of time with the teachers, meeting ahead what strategies they thought students might use, and then what would be the strategies they want to present to the whole class afterwards to really move them toward more efficient strategies. And also really looking at where those mistakes happened, where the motivation happened, and figuring out exactly what skills to target and how to do that to move them toward more operational fluency. And it was just a really beneficial day for kids and teachers. That was a real highlight. And as always, I love the in-service day in January. The window for 360 didn't close until January 31st, but we wanted to really get a jump on that and use that day to really look at that data. And it was just so productive looking at not just achievement, but growth, where students were struggling. We finished that day with every single student, like next steps for every student. And also looked at our action plan and what we've got done on our action plan and what we still need to do. So anyway, just a few highlights, and anyway, Happy New Year. Haven't seen you guys since before, it was December, so Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thank you, Joyce. Any questions or comments for Joyce? Don?
I have a question. My little book says that about February, you might have a staffing challenge. Are you moving forward in addressing it?
Are we talking about second? So,
Yeah.
So I didn't put a challenge on my report because I knew people were probably tired of hearing about staffing challenges, but it is still a challenge. We are, right now today, I actually have some, what I'm hoping is positive news about Karina has to be done in February vacation. And today we met with somebody and we're hoping to be able to move forward and have that person be able to fill that position. So I can talk a little bit more with Julie and with Bonnie, but right now I have my hope rock out and I'm living in hope tonight.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the update.
Hopefully, yes. Cross your fingers.
Anybody else for Joyce? Okay. Next, we'll have Highgate. Yeshua, do you want to do a couple of quick highlights?
Yeah, I think my number one highlight, just like Joyce, is going to be our Martin Luther King Day in service is just wonderful because it really is a day we get to dedicate to data. Very similar to Joyce. What I was hoping for is that all of our teams would be able to meet because part of our goal this year has been able to take our information we're getting from ARC and be able to align our goals in intervention and special ed for goals that are coming from ARC, from ERLA specifically, and Power Goals. So I was really happy to have all of our teams have time to really sit together in hour-long chunks of time and talk about both math and literacy with both of our coaches and be able to say for all of our students, where do we think we need to go? I think we were really happy just to look at data in general though too, just to see where we come from the fall to now. We're seeing some positive trends in both literacy and math, which is really wonderful to look at. I think the other thing is we got to see Sarah Ward again in January, which we thoroughly enjoy. Sarah Ward, and Sarah, who's our executive functioning expert, this is her second year, and she, the last couple of times, spent time in classrooms doing observations, giving feedback. And this time it was more of a consultative model at PLCs. So Sarah and I were just in a room together all day, and then teachers just came in. And ahead of time, I just asked them either there were students to focus on or just kind of goals they had to talk about. And Sarah really is just a breadth of knowledge that whenever you hear her talk, she just has something that you take away from it. And so that was really wonderful, and teachers were pretty positive with that. And I can think of one kindergartner that we've just kind of scratched our heads a bit on how to support this kiddo. Like nothing actually crazy at all, just very kind of things we haven't really kind of broke the surface. And we tried one thing from Sarah, and that student had like a rockin' week in kind of regards to some success that she suggested. And then we're just kind of rocking our usual stuff in January. But the data day is wonderful. And we actually have our district one coming up in February, which we haven't gotten to all of the data yet in different areas like attendance and behavior. So we look forward to that as well. So that's kind of two big highlights from Highgate.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Questions or comments for Yeshua? Okay. Next we'll move to Swanton. Chris, how are you doing tonight?
Yeah, great. Hi, everybody. Just a couple of quick things from Swanton. Similar to what Yeshua mentioned, we're really excited about some work that we have going on aligning our special education team goals, IEP goals of students with the ARC program as well. So we've been working on that program, and a huge shout out to Wendy Cunningham from the district office, who's supporting that work with us, taking a look at the goals that students have in their IEPs and the goals that teachers are setting, the power goals as part of the new ARC reading program, and looking for alignment there, just making sure that we're all headed in the same direction, on the same track, and that alignment has been really the exciting work for us as well, and I know that that's happening across the district. This is the time of year where we're headed into second round of supervision and evaluation for teachers, and so I am in the middle, as is Jess, of scheduling and conducting second observations for teachers who are in years 1 and 2 at Swanton, and I'm really excited about that. The first round of observations that we did this year focused completely on literacy, and the second round of observations that we're conducting are focusing completely on math. And it's really exciting to see how the math program that really was in its full year, first full year of implementation last year, has taken off, and just the consistency that students are receiving instructionally between the new reading program and the new math program is really exciting. So that supervision and evaluation, those observations are a really great way for us to see that across all kinds of classrooms. And the very last thing I would mention is just that we're gearing up for our ski program. And we're very excited about that again this year. We have students that overwhelmingly this year, when we've started to have our conversations, have never been skiing before. And so that's really exciting for us to be able to provide an opportunity for them to try something new and be outside and build an appreciation and a love for physical activity and just experience something that they haven't had an opportunity to do before. So we're really looking forward to that as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Chris? Don?
I know we have a long meeting, but first of all, I guess I want to thank you for the bad news. The bad news being that our after-school program is cutting back. I was glad you mentioned it because when I was out walking getting petitions signed, I think I had 3 people mention that what's happening with the after-school program? Why aren't you funding it? I'm going, funding it? We fund it. But hopefully there's a plan so we can restore that, or is it done for the year?
No, it's not necessarily done for the year. So we did reduce the number of students in the program, and we really felt strongly, we worked very closely with Beth Ann and others from that program. We really felt strongly that we would rather offer a slightly smaller variety of options and keep those really high quality, keep them supervised well, have them really be what we want them to be for our students, rather than try to maintain a larger selection of things that perhaps did not rise to the level of what we wanted. So we've made a lot of effort to try to connect school day staff with after school program staff. And we've already had a couple of classroom teachers step up and want to work in the after school program, which is really exciting. So we are really taking a look at, in the next session, potentially being able to maybe restore some of those things that we had to cut for this session. But we really are holding tight to our priority of maintaining safe, high quality offerings. But it's looking really positive. We've had some folks really step up to the plate.
Good. Thank you, Chris.
So Chris, just for clarification, it's because there wasn't enough staff to be able to field the programs. So to
That's
ensure the
right.
quality.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And we have a lot of, there are a lot of requirements that come along with that grant. It's very, very specific around staffing, and we have some really wonderful students from MVU that come in and work with our folks. And there are some requirements around needing to have an adult with each one of those folks. So the grant's very, very strict about those staffing requirements, but Beth Ann and Molly Hartman-Lontine do a great job. And again, we've got a couple of classroom teachers. The grant would really like to see us have 30% of that program staff also be school day staff. And so we're working hard to make those connections. But yes, Rennick, absolutely, it was a staffing issue.
Okay. Thanks, Chris.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. You're welcome to leave tonight.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, thank you.
Except Yeshua.
Except for Yeshua, I'm sorry, you're stuck here with us. Next agenda item is presentations and discussion items. First up is the MVSD Association Listen and Learn presentation.
And give me a minute, because I've got to
Where would I be good?
share the presentation.
Stand.
Jan, sit, wherever
I'm
that's
gonna go stand. Well, so hello, everybody. It's been a little bit since I've seen you. I'm Kirsten Belrose, teach 6th grade in Swanton, have for almost 40 years. I'm the president of our local MVSD NEA. Association. This is Jen Mitchell, who is our tech integration specialist. She's our secretary, and Christine DePady came along as well. She was a member. She teaches in Swanton also, but was one of the people who was collected data and conducted some of the interviews of this listening tour that we're going to talk to you about that we did. To begin with, when I started took this position on last year, one of the goals that I had was to really get to know the staff, the faculty and staff in the whole district. If we're going to represent them, I want to make sure that it's not just coming from the perspective of somebody who's been teaching at only one school for a long, long time. We have all sorts of people, 4 different schools, and wanted to make sure we had a really good feel as we try to advocate for people and for students this year. So we decided to conduct something called a listening tour. And basically, what we did is members of our district, of which Christine was a person, and some of people from Montpelier came up to help us. We conducted one-on-one interviews with licensed educators in our district, and the purpose was to gather feedback from them, to get to know their district, what the needs were, what people felt, what was going well in all 4 of our schools. So we did it this past fall. Conversations ranged from anywhere from 10 minutes to an hour, generally about 20 to 30 minutes. We chose to interview not just association members, but anybody. And the focus really was to listen. We just wanted to hear what people had to say. When we created this, we had well over 50% of our professional staff who had participated, and we're continuing as people are able to talk to them and find out how things are going for them. What we did was, I got a little on my notes here. What we did is we asked them 3 different questions. First off, we know that there are great things happening in our schools, and it's really important that we focus on positives as well, and not just negatives. We wanted to know what gets you out of bed in the morning, what do you love about your job, what brings you joy, what's going well. And that's how we started, and we just listened to what people had to say, and we took anecdotal notes. We did not collect any names. We did sort it by schools though. And then from there, we asked people, what's challenging? What makes it difficult for you? What gets in the way? What's hard? And listen to them. And we choose to be very proactive. We want to be solution-based and focused. And so we said, okay, so what suggestions do you have? How would you go about solving this? So those were the 3 questions that we focused on. And you want to change that there, Jen? Okay, and so positives, hands down, were colleagues and students. When we asked people what was going well for them, it was really great to see and to read. You can go to the next slide if you want. And there's some quotes there. I'm not sure if you're able to see that, but when we asked people what brought them joy to their jobs, they cited colleagues in particular as one of the number 1 positive aspects there. The educators in this district really deeply value the relationships that they share with their colleagues. They talked about appreciation for their team members and the support systems that they provide. And this is at all levels and in all buildings. People really enjoy and appreciate the collaborative manner that their colleagues approach educating kids, problem solving, and as well as the commitment and dedication to students' academic, social, and emotional growth. So those initiatives that we've had here and the PLCs and things that we've had have really helped to lead to that. So that's been great. And those are some of the things that are direct quotes from the data that we collected. Okay, the next one, please, thanks. Students. with the teachers here love their kids. We do. And so the interactions that we have with them, the relationships and the connections that we develop, those are the most commonly cited positive aspects of our work. People love and got very excited and talked about the learning and the excitement that we feel as kids make connections and things. And the building of community within our classrooms and seeing kids grow from both an academic and a social standpoint. We love that, and that was evident throughout the district at all levels. Okay, all right. Challenges came up with three big areas. As you can see, staff shortages and lack of subs. Concerns around lack of administrative support, and then behavior, protocols, student behaviors. Those were the three categories that we found that are important for us to take a look at. And we want to share it with you. Go ahead. So in terms of lack of substitutes, and there are some quotes that we took directly that you can read. The educators in this district are exceedingly frustrated with the decrease in staffing and inability to retain people, both for licensed and support staff positions, those kid-facing positions. They shared over and over about how educators are being pulled from their own demanding jobs to cover classes or address student behaviors, often resulting in not being able to attend to their own responsibilities effectively, and frequently creating situations where student needs aren't being met. Educators are asked regularly to cover classes, duties, lunches, and many respond and share their concerns that they're, with no general education paraeducators, it's difficult to meet the needs of all the students in the classroom without having any support. If you have kids at all different grade levels, you can go ahead and
Just real quick.
yeah. Sorry.
Is this for all 4 schools?
All 4 schools.
Okay, so including the high school?
The high school, middle school, yes. We interviewed people in all of them.
Do they element, I know that we get reports on the middle school and high school where teachers volunteer and get paid extra for picking up classes. Does any of that happen in the elementary, or do you get, because I would expect you wouldn't get that opportunity in an elementary school.
The slide letter, and make sure that I'm saying this correctly, says that if you volunteer to, you have to have your lunch and your prep period. If you volunteer to give up your prep period, so if I have, my kids are in art, and I want to go cover, that's when somebody would be paid.
Right.
But if I am a person, in this case, a lot of times it's like special educators and interventionists who's may have time without kids in addition to their or my phys ed teacher in addition to their lunch and prep period, that they're being saying, okay, you need to come here, you need to go there. I think the biggest stressor that I hear from are interventionists and special educators in particular. They're going in a lot of different directions, subbing and things like that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, which one am I on now? Okay. You can turn to the next one.
No, go back. No, that is
Wait,
back.
that is the next one?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So he wanted to do.
I just wanted to
With a positive.
staffing shortages, okay.
More subs.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry, I just wanna make sure I'm on the right page. 'Cause I didn't change all right. So, staffing shortages, lack of substitutes. There's a concern that in our district, for looking at competitive pay, that's a big piece of that, as well as lack of support and training for those people who are being hired to do those jobs, particularly support staff. So, being put into situations where you get some at the beginning of the year, but they're trying to figure out how to build that in. People who are interviewed were clear that there are not enough student-facing adults in some of the schools to meet needs of the kids in their classrooms, behaviorally and academically. That's what they're seeing and they're finding. People who are interviewed agree that looking at competitive pay with surrounding districts and working to provide supports for staff currently in their schools to recruit and retain both support and licensed staff are important. So if you look at, there are some quotes there for that. We did hear that a lot, so that's why you will can look at the next one. So administrative support. So when it comes to support from building administrators, employees have very different experiences based on their specific work sites. So at some work sites, people, some of the frustrations they experience had to do with what they perceive as a lack of visibility, maybe, delayed or unclear, or maybe even in some cases non-existent communication, and a need to the lack of support of educators, particularly when they're dealing with some parents that are giving them a hard time, things like that. All work sites, though, felt that also felt that central administration. We'd like to see you more visible in schools, and to continue to work on ensuring consistent and clear communication so that the messages that they're getting are consistent from one school to the next. So those were some areas that we also noticed as well. Okay. The next one, right?
That's the vision.
Okay, is that the next one? Okay,
Yeah.
thanks. So we're really, as you look at this one, when we looked at it, we saw that support from both central office and building level administration, those are areas to continue to work on. They talked about a lot of different initiatives that come in, and there's, as we try to improve our schools, and sometimes adding those to full plates without enough follow through time or time allotted to learn and plan and implement can make it really overwhelming for people. Respondents in different buildings shared their frustration with communicating, and I think that's a big thing we heard overall. Support and follow through, wanting to see administrators out and about in their buildings, visible to kids as well as staff. There's just a sense that in some places that there's a lack of understanding of actually what's happening in classrooms with some of the behaviors and things in particular, and some of the challenges that people are making. So getting into classrooms more, that kind of thing, was something that people talked about as being a need. Okay. So some of the challenges that we had with behaviors, we added that one, okay. Many educators are clear that not only are they seeing increases in disruptive and sometimes even damaging behaviors, but there are not always clear behavior protocols in place to address them when they arise, mentioning that having to frequently evacuate classrooms for the safety of other students, and it can take a long time for additional support to come. Those things, if you look at some of these quotes, really talk about a pressing need for there to be defined protocols that are adhered to consistently in all the buildings, and sufficient staffing to be able to support those needs, because it's getting in the way of learning. And we're on the next one, Jim, I'm sorry. Okay. So again, the need for clear, consistent protocols is something that we heard at all different levels and in all buildings. Then to be followed by all stakeholders, and have them be clearly defined for all kids, so that we can meet the needs of kids who are struggling to learn in a way that's where everybody gets to be successful. And I think that was kind of all right, so we had here some quotes that Swanton is going to have a leadership change. And we looked at the data, and a lot of those concerns for administrative were very specific to Swanton. And if you look here, these are some these are some quotes that came from our the Swanton people who were interviewed that talk about what their needs are. And when you look at it, it's very, very consistent with the data from the survey that Julie gave us recently. The questions were based on the standards for administration from the AOE. And when we looked at that data, it really lined up with what we're looking for in Swanton as we move to a new administration. And I think that's all.
What's next steps?
Oh, I'm sorry, next step. So we're gonna continue to complete our listening tour with, not just with bargaining unit members, but with everybody who's interested. And we're really interested in working proactively to, organizing committees, again, being a part of the solution rather than just talking about where the problems are. We did use this to formalize proposals for negotiations as well. And we want to continue to be able to listen to people and find out how things are going, and work with our administration at all levels so that we can kind of improve things and celebrate the good stuff too. So, I guess.
All right. Does anybody have any questions or comments?
Of course.
I'm looking right at you first, Dawn.
Outside of probably being one of the best teachers I've ever known, this young lady, I've seen her
It's nice
for
of you to
years.
say that.
Appreciate your doing this. Early in your presentation, you mentioned we want to work together to solve problems. I travel around a little bit, and I find that most school districts are struggling to find substitutes and bus drivers. So what do we need to do to support the building administrators? I think one time you kind of alluded to money, but are there people out there? Is it all of a sudden not fashionable to be a substitute teacher? I mean, somebody must have had some thoughts what we should be doing for substitutes.
I've been both a bus driver and a substitute teacher, a para here in this building. I'm gonna tell you, it's tough with kids these days, and I think it takes a special kind of person who's willing to do that. Money is part of it, I'm not gonna lie. There's a lot of people who are struggling, and so coming in and working is hard. But I also think, I've recently had, my daughter's been a substitute coming in, and there's not a lot of preparation. It's really a good thing that she went through Northwest Tech and had a lot of training prior to, because unfortunately, there's not enough training for subs to come into how to handle a kid who's blowing out or behavior management. And so they're burning out because they don't have the training. And the same thing with bus drivers. A lot of times we see Terracell has their mechanics coming in. That wasn't what they were hired to do. They were hired to fix the buses, not drive the buses. So I was blessed. I had good kids on the bus, but that took effort. And I also had a lot of training beforehand of how to manage a bus. So I do feel like there's definitely a disconnect with what we're asking them to do and what we're able to give them for skills. But that takes time, and none of us have had time to be able to do that. We, as teachers, when we have a teacher that's out, we do our best to support that substitute that's coming in and pull out the ones we know that might be a little more challenging behaviors or not handle the change very well. But it is really tough. It is really tough. And we are short-handed, there's no doubt about it. So that puts extra pressure on the people who are there. And like I said, that includes the bus drivers. There's a lot of mechanics who are pausing to drive school buses. And they're doing the best they can. most of the kids say they're grumpy, but I remind them it's because that's not what they had signed up to do, so be nice, but,
If I can come back for the substitute teachers for a minute.
yeah.
I'm hearing two things. If we paid better and we provided them with training, would be a couple of things that could be done that might help us get more subs.
I believe so.
Okay. Because I think everybody around the table here wants solutions. I don't think any of us don't want solutions. But we're not in the schools and shouldn't be in the schools, but we should know what's going on. So I guess your administrators heard that. Some of them weren't there, but I'm sure Julie will get the word to them. But a couple of things for us to look at least. Thank you.
It's nice when Kirsten and Jen and Deb Murray present. Deb was there too?
Yep.
Yeah. Presented to Bonnie and I last month, and for the most part, there weren't any surprises, and they were all things that we're all trying to work on together. So it's,
Yeah, you had said you hear them at your exit interviews and round tables.
round
and stuff
tables
like that.
and yeah, so that was, I think, very positive that there were. We know what the issues are, and we're all trying to work on them together. But it was good to. I was glad you were able to do that.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
Megan?
Megan?
I have a question. So I'm definitely upset, frustrated to hear about the admin piece of things. The micromanaging, the not understanding what we do in classrooms is sort of heartbreaking. So I'm just wondering if there are any current expectations or requirements for admins to be in the various buildings. If we have the special ed director, do they have to be in classrooms X number of hours per month? Say with curriculum, principals, assistant principals, and so on. Are there any requirements?
Not necessarily. We certainly do walkthroughs together several times a year. We're in the buildings for a variety of purposes, but in terms of being in classrooms, that has not been one of our big priorities, though we certainly always want to do more. So that's interesting feedback for us to take back to the admin team.
Thank you.
Can I just respond to that too? I just want to make sure that you remember that there's 4 different schools and that the results did vary. It was not all in all schools. It varies. And Swanton was definitely a school where that really came out.
With one administrator, not both.
Yeah.
So that clear too, like.
Oops, sorry.
Hopefully it'll change then.
So my question is a bit more, how do you want us to necessarily parse that data? Because how many people were, 50 people?
No, it's 50%.
50%?
Oh, there was over
Across the 4 schools.
50% professional.
And the reason I'm sort of saying it like that is because, we come here, week after week, and we know if we had more money, right, and we could provide more, that we could fix a lot of problems. But the current climate for education is pulling us in the other direction, right? Like, we know what's happening, like, we know the call to, like, keep funding as proficient as possible. So, in terms of, like, narrowing down solutions of what we can actually do short of being able to offer more, pay more, like what's the right balance? Because at the same time, the conversations that are happening right now are to have less staff in classrooms, right? And, and this is just more what I feel like as a board member we have to look at from like a governance standpoint, which is we're being forced to constantly do more with less. And so I would love to just say we can, be able to fund and go back to, ESSER dollars and put, 2-3 more interventionists in each class and be able to do that out. But if we're not able to do that, then like where would from your point of view, where would we then push to make the changes? Because the other part of it is, I wish there was a bit more nuance, because when I hear like admin, I don't know what that means. That can mean anything from principal to support staff. There was some specifics in there which, again, it's case by case, right? And it's not, and I'm pushing back in that sense because what I'm trying to understand is, like, we also, like, we need, like, the teachers and the staff to know that they may not have more. And like, how can we then help them and support them without being able to give more? Because all of them might have to do with less. You know, so that's what I'm asking. Like, how can we improve based on sort of like that criteria and those limitations?
In regards to administration, they're talking about principals.
Well,
Okay, principals, so your question was, what does that mean?
so, but I want to eliminate that for a second,
Okay.
simply because we're aware of some possible changes. So
Yeah,
that now is a future conversation.
I agree.
So what are specifics then that, and again, if we're just gonna talk about and deal with Swanton, so what are specifics that they would be looking for the future?
Swanton, or anybody, I think.
Because there's differences though, because, you know, I feel that certain support based on what the board is presenting, we hear is sufficient, and we hear a lot of good things from support from admin and staff in the different schools, so are we really narrowing that down to the one school, and then therefore in the future, then what are things that would help?
But it's not just the one school. When we
Well,
did
that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, when we did the listening tour, we did find that there was also concern around admin's presence and follow through at MVU as well, at both the middle school and at the high school level. Where it primarily was we saw it very clearly through Swanton's data, but there was still mentions of it at MVU. We did not have as much, if any, from Franklin, and none as far as admin
did have
through
something.
from, we did, I didn't know, but the primary from, it was largely MVU and Swanton that we.
Just,
For
okay.
the, for the
We had
admin.
data from all
We
the
had
schools.
data from all the schools, but as far as admin, and it was mostly that presence, the clear communication, the protocols followed. Those categories fell through, came through with those two schools. And that's that, and so I do understand what you're saying about Swanton and we're moving forward, but that has also been prevalent in MVU as well. So.
Is that a byproduct of their size though? I mean, you're going to have more staff
no,
that are from those schools, so if we looked at the percentage instead of numbers, would that change anything?
I think it makes it more
Because
challenging.
they have more staff.
It does, but I think from what we gathered, and again, looking at it, it was more of, quite frankly, it was position changing. So who was the middle school became the high school, and the middle school got a new middle school, and I think there was, at this point, there's still some, what is their roles and how is that working? There's not, based on what we received from the interviewers, that they are not seeing the presence of their principals in and around the school. It's very limited, and so that is different and frustrating, is what we got as a message.
But I do think size too,
Absolutely.
they're two very big schools.
Yep. Absolutely.
Then you asked another.
The other one was, so you presented to us, was it back in the fall? Or was
Yeah.
it before?
Yes,
And you were
I was,
talking about behaviors.
yes,
Alright, and I know that,
it was part of our plan, our
The continuous improvement.
continuous
yeah,
improvement.
so, you talked about behaviors and so based on what you're seeing, if behaviors continue to be difficult, like what, and you've been teaching from what I understand,
Long time.
a couple of years. So from then to now, like, is a trend going the other direction? Are there different things that you see that could be done? Like, I mean, like, because this is one of those things that, again, like, I'm not in the schools, I don't know, right? Like, there's good, there's bad, but we do hear that behavior is a different, an issue. We know it's a broader issue, but, you know, should it be the policy that we just kick kids out of school for bad behavior? Like, I mean, like, again, knowing that we have these limitations, or is it, like, what is the 6 month, 1 year, 5 year solutions to this? Again, understanding that financially, like, this district has constraints, right? And unless, I think all the board would love if we could add $10 million to our budget and put more staff, but short of that, then, you know, what can we do?
You're gonna say something?
Yeah, I'm just in, this is my 14th year in Swanton. I spent 10 years teaching 6th grade. When I started, there was a general paraeducator for every 2 classrooms. And now those paraeducators have become one-on-ones. So it's almost like the same number of support staff, but their shifts and roles are very, very different. So they're now working with individual students who need that intense support because of their needs. So that means that there really aren't any general paraeducators in the classrooms anymore to help, which helped alleviate some of the pressure on teachers. So if something was going on in the classroom, you had somebody, another adult there, so you could talk to a kid in the hallway and kind of figure out what was going on and have those conversations. You weren't the only adult in the classroom where students are struggling and you have to work with the struggling student, but the rest of the class is still waiting for you too, if that makes sense. So that's a shift that I've seen.
Isn't that an overall shift though, due to like the increase in like special education and special, like, that we've had to just, and that's been like just a trend that's been changed.
Yeah, the needs have definitely changed, but that's also changed the staffing. It's a trickle down where, it's a ripple effect where you change one thing and then it definitely affects others too. But that's just, what I've noticed in the last decade.
We are seeing a lot more kids come into school very dysregulated, very, very dysregulated kids who their ability to communicate and advocate for themselves, the needs that you learn when you're little, they're not there. And so in the kindergartens, you have children who've never been in school before, and their way of maybe getting their needs met is very different from kids maybe who've been taught by families how to, you wait your turn and some of those social skills that you would expect. We have a lot of kids who are struggling with that, or they being able, and that's translating all the way up and having expectations. It's very, very different. So I think there are a lot of kids who, while we see a lot of really big behaviors of kids who have some significant needs, there are a lot of other kids around disrespect and executive functioning challenges and stuff that can become so difficult when you're trying to have a class of many different needs. Can be really hard to handle. What I think that we were talking about here is that the behaviors and stuff become very exhausting and overwhelming for teachers and staff, and trying to figure out how to do your job, respond with those. We're looking for consistent in buildings ways to handle them, follow through that's consistent with maybe how you might handle one teacher, respond to that child, their needs versus another. It can be kind of huge, and that I see as some administrative style types of things. I see as, and so when we talk about central office, maybe if there's a struggle there, being more involved in making sure that those changes are made. I think sometimes the teachers don't really know who to talk to about that. So I get it.
And my last question is just,
I don't know if I'm answering any of your questions.
No, I understand this because it's a lot, right?
It's a huge, massive thing, and it's many layers.
It's a lot of layers, it's a lot of convergent issues, and it's a lot of, we have a lot of constraints,
Yeah.
right? And then the last thing is, do you see a difference between some of the newer teachers coming in and the more experienced teachers?
Oh,
Been there,
yeah.
right? Like in terms of their, I deal with this in all sorts of levels in my civilian work, where the difference between 10, 15 years doing it and what you can handle
Yes.
versus someone, you know, right out of school. There's a big difference in terms
Sure.
of the workload that they can handle and what is a stressful amount of work, which is what is other people just used to. Like, do you see that? Is that something that is taking like a little bit of time?
Well, experience, experience comes into play. And I raised 3 kids, and so I'm comfortable saying I said no. As you are. I know how I can learn to anticipate things. You have what we call our with-itness, and I'm very aware of what's happening in my classroom. But when I started teaching, I had a phenomenal teammate who taught me how to say no, because I was 22 and could really model a lot of that through her own experience. But when I look at the way the education, the things that we're doing, the responsibilities they have in the classroom has increased tenfold. And I'm talking about being a self-contained teacher. That is crazy amount of work. And so when you're, what's happening for a lot of people, and this was me a short time ago too, with a class with some extreme behaviors in it, you're spending all your daytime doing that everything you have to do to prepare for your lessons and stuff is all after hours, and it's exhausting. So when you have somebody who's 22, 23, young, coming out and trying to handle that, that's the stuff that makes people second guess their profession. So knowing that you have somebody that you can turn to, that's where that camaraderie and that collaborativeness of your teams that's why teachers love that, because you can turn to somebody and say, I need some help with this. We want to, in some of the schools that people are not always feeling that from administration. And that's when sometimes you can feel very much alone.
I think the other piece of that is too, as our district has grown, and so we have a lot of people who are going from school to school to school, and I know I have an ELL student in my class who I only get to see the ELL teacher once in a while because of just scheduling, and so developing relationships with people becomes that much harder. So you're trying to find the time to meet with that person or answer the email or do the planning specifically, and that has become a little bit more challenging because the needs of the students have gotten bigger, and they're not necessarily always academic. A lot of them are, we spend a lot of time in communication with families, and that takes up time. So when you look at your day and you're thinking, oof, I still got all these emails to send or Class Dojo messages to send out and stuff like that, I think for younger people, it's overwhelming because they're also learning the job, learning the structure, learning how to do what they need to do well.
Trying to figure out the copy machine.
Yeah, the copy machine.
Nobody can figure out.
I'm jamming it all the time.
Tech
Well,
stuff.
and I have the privilege of going into all classrooms, and there's a variability with new teachers. You're asking, if there's a difference between new teachers and veteran teachers. There's a difference between veteran teachers, and what they can handle and how they are. I see some first-year teachers who seem like they're overwhelmed, and others who have that with-itness already. So it depends on the person themselves and what they're bringing to the table. So
we have things in place that we're trying to support. We have our mentor program, and we have some stuff that we're trying to do as part of our civic plan to try to pair teachers who may be struggling with somebody who can offer them some of that. Sometimes that in and of itself can be overwhelming too, because you're just trying to figure out how to function. And so it's important that we try to look for ways to grow teachers at all levels without overwhelming them too.
Well, that was all my questions, but I did want to say thank you for a lot of years and a lot of work. Fortunate to have you, and I just look at it from a board perspective, we are constantly trying and working and trying to find ways to get more resources to allocate. And I know we work closely with everyone seated here to try to do that. It's a battle we're always trying to fight, and the biggest thing you can do right now is tell your friends to go vote for the budget on March 4th, so we don't have to try anything more. So just say, there is something we can do real quick to try to keep that going, but thank you.
I appreciate your time.
Thank you for taking the time
Thank you.
to have
Joanne has
a
one more.
question.
Oh,
I'm sorry. I know it's gonna be hard to follow Rennick, but I'll make mine like easier than his.
can I ask you, what's your last name?
Mine?
Yeah.
I mean, which one?
Oh, I don't.
No, I'm a Johnston. I'm
Oh.
a Johnston now, but I'm a Dandelion. I'm originally a Dandelion,
Oh, okay.
not from Swanton.
Okay, that's why I was trying to figure out who everybody was, sorry.
So my question is, well, first I want to say thank you for presenting to us and for putting this together and for, reaching all of these individuals. So when did you ask these questions? When did you sit down and meet with all of these people? Was it last fall?
September, October mostly.
Okay.
November, some people too.
Okay, so then you put everything together and then you met with Julie and her team.
We shared this with our members first, and then
Okay.
we shared this with Julie and Bonnie.
Okay,
And
and
then I just felt we needed to share it with you too, so you knew kind of.
yeah, no, definitely. I really appreciate this. So then I guess, so will you, like, again next year, will you meet with them again? Like, what now? Like,
Yeah, no, what I had we thought originally was we would take more of a deep dive into Swanton, but things are changing and so we feel pretty good about that. I'd like to sit and find out more about, this was not with the support staff. And I know we've had a really high turnover rate there. And I'd like to find out more about what they need so that we can continue to not have such a high turnover rate, try to find out more just from them as well. And then probably do this, I'd like to do this periodically. To me, it was, it gave me a much better picture rather than just a survey. And I conducted very few. I wanted to make sure that I wasn't gonna skew anything. I just wanted to be able to listen, to have it come from elsewhere. I'd like to kind of do regular temperature, take the temperature regularly.
I would ask if this is done again to kind of break it down with your school.
Oh, I can break, it's already broken down for me, yeah. We were just trying to,
consolidate information
Yeah.
and kind of just let you know
Yeah.
overall. And where we saw those large differences, we made sure to mention it.
yeah, I can.
But yeah.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
Stay warm.
Can I jump in before we move to the next topic? I don't know if it's just me, but the camera feed is super blurry.
No, I just got seeing that it's blurry too, Megan.
I don't know if there's something that we can do, but I just wanted to let you know it's super blurry. So if anyone else is watching or watches in the future, it's I can't see anybody. I can see Stephanie when it's like that, but when it was the teacher speaking, you couldn't really make out anybody's features.
Yeah, we've been trying to
Fine with
work
me.
on it. This is a new one from the one that we had previously, and it just seems to be worse. So we're still trying to investigate a way to improve the video.
Not just me though. That's
Yeah.
good. That's good. That's my
All right, next we got legislative update from Julie.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to do a quick update. I think we can maybe have a further one next week as well when we have a board meeting. But as you have heard last week, the governor had Zoe Saunders roll out the governor's plan, their proposal to transform public education. which would involve a few major things. The larger policy brief, I think, would be important to look at for board members, but essentially switching to a foundation grant rather than local votes based on student need and evidence-based staffing levels. And also then the ability to do that essentially through redistricting from our 52 supervisory unions in 115 school districts to 5 school districts. Heard the governor's budget presentation today at 1 o'clock. He closed essentially with his proposal again to move to that his preferred model and his vision for creating a more efficient education system. He spoke of using some general fund dollars, quite a number of general fund dollars, to buy down the proposed 5.9% tax rate increase in Vermont. I'm not sure the mechanism by which he will do that. I assume it would be the yield, but that would impact communities differently, so I don't know. And I also saw today House Ed was meeting with General Legislative Counsel to talk about what are the hypotheticals, and lawyers hate hypotheticals, but really, if this plan were in place, what are some of the questions we need to ask? And that hopefully will shape their goals. I don't know that House Ed or Senate Ed are necessarily on the same page of the scope of the transformation. I mean, that's what we have to pay attention to over the upcoming months. I met with, last Thursday, we had an all superintendents meeting in Montpelier. We had Zoe Saunders addressing all of the superintendents, asking for their help while they change the nature of our schools. We had a lot of questions. She was there for more than 2 hours. And then we had lunch with members of House and Senate Ed. And we had little tables, and we had one legislator at each table so we could really have good dialogue. It was very clear from Peter Conlon and Seth, I'm not sure who the Senate...
Guy from Bennington.
Yeah. He's new to me.
Sorry, was Senator Beck?
Bongarth or
No,
something
it's
like
not
that.
that. But the chair of Senate Ed, they are very clear that they will be doing something. So there was definitely the message that there is political will to do something pretty bold, but the details are very important. Even Zoe Saunders admitted that a 3 to 4 year timeline is ambitious. They're counting this year in the timeline, right? Like the data that they put in there on the timeline, they talked about training school administrators. I think they meant those Nate Levinson trainings that we had that didn't tell us anything new. So those are really the data they've been collecting is the activities that they're engaged in this year. We're going to have to pay a lot of attention. Superintendents are adding an extra meeting, one virtually every month, so that we can be following up. We're going to be, having phone conversations with our executive directors. I'm sure VSBA will be doing similar kinds of things. Be a lot for us to be paying attention to, and knowing this legislative session, things can move pretty quickly.
If they move, though.
Unless they say, we don't think we have the time, I think we'll spend the year talking about it, and then next year we'll make some proposals. There are no bills on the floor, right? There's nothing at this point.
Yeah, that's kind of my thought, is that one of the arguments against Governor's policy here was necessarily they didn't have a proposal, right? They just said that they didn't like what the yield bill that came to them. So clearly the messaging right now is, let's put forth our own proposal, let's make it as big as possible, as far reaching as possible. We'll see. I think we just have to see. My personal opinion is we can't operate under the assumption of all these things that could or couldn't happen. So we would have to wait and see if actual legislation bills get put to the floor.
Mm-hmm.
They still don't have the majority, they can veto it, but they don't actually have the majority.
They don't have an override.
So I think we have to just kind of just be patient and just focus on the here and now and what we're doing in this current year and getting this budget through, and then before getting all, to me, all riled up, because this is also politics. And Dawn's well aware that in politics, sometimes where you start a negotiation and where you finish can be very different, so.
I really think that this 5 district is a shot across the bow. This is what we think, and we're modeling based on this. What the legislators are the ones that have the authority to decide what the scale of any change would be. And I expect they will discuss seriously change, but I don't know that there is a lot of political will for a school district with 35,000 students in it.
Well,
The next smallest with 14,000. I think that there's many conversations to be had.
So Julie, has anybody in any of your discussions mentioned the Brigham decision?
Oh, yes, that's really central, that anything that, in terms of a foundation formula, they're calling it a student-centered funding system, but it would be essentially weighted to be consistent with Brigham. Any decisions that were made have to meet the education, I want to say comparability, but that's the wrong word, but the clause of our Constitution.
Because anything that I've read or heard, I'm sure I missed some of it, but it's violating the terms of that court case, so this stuff can get tied up.
Certainly would if there's substantially different educational experiences in each area. So things like choice, things like the historical academies, all of those things have to be considered in these decisions to meet Brigham.
I talked with a friend of mine out of state that we communicate because we did some work together a number of years ago, and he says, Vermont made the news and talked about that. I said, what's your opinion? He said, DOA, dead on arrival, but it's a good topic, so I hope he's right, but that was his take. It's a good political thing.
I've never seen any governor's plan that he proposes in the beginning of January come to fruition. Something may come from it.
Good to start the conversation.
Right. Yeah, but it's a leading point, but the legislature always wants their say, and they want to put their spin or their molding to it. So but it is so broad that even if you come here, it's drastically different than what we have now.
Well,
So, but they're going to feel pressure to do something this year, and if not this year, they definitely are going to feel pressure to do it.
For the next election, they need to do something.
Yes.
I would expect that the foundation formula, model, whatever it is that they determine, would be where they would start while they plan for the governance changes and they'll argue about that through the next biennium.
Gives the legislators something to do,
Good, maybe they want to enact all these other laws that they keep enacting so many restrictions, so many, maybe they keep them busy and maybe nothing will come forward.
Thank you, Julie. Next up, we got the MVU and Swanton stormwater projects with an action. Laura.
So we finally received the adjustment to the bid at MVU. I'll share my screen quickly.
When you say just, it's really
yesterday. After I asked 3 times. Again, I'll say that this bid process is not in our control, and it did make me uncomfortable, but I think that we've landed in a spot where we can have faith in the projects happening with the amounts that I'm showing you. So for MVU, the parts in green are really the parts you need to focus on now. The bid that was being adjusted is the EEC bid, that now is at $164,945. So then you can see at the bottom that our new local share would be the $16,495, and the grant would pick up about $150. So it's only about $800 from the original estimates that they were using. So not too bad. And then Swanton is the larger project, as we know. Bid one with Cortland Construction for $410,048. Our local share will be the $41,005, so that's a difference from the original of $13,845. So again, very close to the original is where we ended up. So we'd be looking for the board to consider approving these so we can move forward and become in compliance with the 3-acre stormwater rule.
And so I had asked, because it's so unusual, that the third-party vendor for the state has done the bids. We're accepting the bids, even though our cost will be just that 10% share, Laura sharing, but we have to approve the full, because the third-party vendor doesn't have the authority to approve a bid.
Sort of just managing the
I
process.
think we should
for the
take what else is necessary before they change their minds. How many years we've been working on
It's
this?
been
6, I think, 5.
Yeah,
Long time.
I inherited the blueprints from,
And as we know, some projects are contingent upon this happening, like the parking lot can't happen until this happens, so the longer it takes, the longer that takes.
So,
I'll make a motion to approve the revised bids.
You're gonna do both together, or we? should we do-
Together's fine.
Okay. But they're two different contractors, right?
They are, I mean, one motion is fine with both, but you can do it however you'd like.
Peter, do you wanna do them separately? Because it's two different
Or
contractors.
We should just spell it out, however we do it.
I would suggest we have two motions. I think we should separate them, two different contractors.
So
Yeah.
Stephanie. I'll accept it. I'll make a motion to accept the EEC revised bid for the MVU stormwater project.
I'll second that.
Okay, Stephanie and then Don for the MVU stormwater project. Any questions or comments?
So that's for a total of $164,945, with our share being $16,495.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Megan. Motion carries 9-0. And then I'll be looking for a motion to accept Swanton.
I'll make the motion to accept the Swanton bid with Cortland Construction.
I'll second it.
Elaine and then Peter. Okay, questions or comments on that one?
So the same thing with that one, is for $410,048, with our local share being $41,005.
Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Laura, any idea of their schedule?
Motion carries
Will be
9-0.
a year from now?
They asked if they could start early at MVU, and we said that they could, so earlier than the start of the summer. Because MVU is really a lot of like rock and gravel being brought in and put in ditches and stuff like that. Swan, there's no way it can start until students aren't there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Will any of that, this is probably more of a facilities meeting, but is any of that going to our other projects going on? Are they going to interfere with each other?
Jason's like a orchestra person?
Conductor.
Conductor, thank you.
Really good at what
He has had this planned out
Okay.
for months now, yeah. Conductor.
All right. The next will be the FY26 budget adoption for action, and we'll have the budget draft.
So the budget amount of $50,956,879 is the same number that you saw last time. It's an overall increase from last year of just over $2 million or 4.1%. The only adjustments that were made to the expenditures are just the first bullet, the increase to admin salaries as directed by the board. But all of that I was able to offset with small savings from other lines and get a little creative there. So there was no increase overall. And then on the revenue side, I'll talk about revenues a little bit later, but we did receive a firm number on the EEE revenue from the state, which is the special ed portion of the early education or pre-K, probably how you would know it. So again, I've updated this kind of tax rate page. You can see we still are having the same anticipated decreases of 6 cents in Franklin, 11 cents in Highgate, and 4 cents in Swanton. That's an average tax rate decrease of 7 cents across our towns, which I think is pretty remarkable. If the governor does do what he's saying he's going to do and dump some other funding into the ed fund and spending across the state remains consistent with what we think it's going to be, then our taxes will go down even more. So that's good news for us.
Laura, when I was out getting signatures on my petition, I had 3 different people ask, and apparently they watched the TV thing. What does it look like with the CLA? Because we haven't talked about the CLA this year at all.
So there's it comes into play differently now. There's an adjustment, a statewide adjustment that happens starting this year.
Right.
And so basically they're kind of evening out the impact of the CLAs being so inequitable across towns and being so far behind the values of houses being sold. And so what it has done for us is bring our CLAs much closer to the 100% where they're supposed to be. So some of our towns were falling like in the 65 range, 70 range, which is really, really low, and that's what was creating those up and down tax rates. Ours are much closer to 100%
So it's not
now.
going to have a significant impact on these numbers?
So what happens now is the tax rates that you see here are the ones that people will have on their tax bill.
Okay.
So we sort of don't really need to pay attention to the first number, like the equalized tax rate that we used to really focus on.
All right.
This is now what we'll be seeing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
I just want to say, we were talking about things that the state needs to focus on or the things that they're discussing. I talk to Julie about this a lot as she calms me down. One of the things, you heard me say that the information that we get as school districts is very late, not accurate, on and on and on. The number that I got for your long-term weighted ADM, which is the basis for the entire foundation, this formula, and would be for a foundation formula, just came today. Last night at 8:59 actually, so I just got it today.
After we've been asked to verify it 3 different times.
And it was incorrect over and over and over. So something the state really needs to consider, and I think you all need to understand, is if they cannot use the data that we give them and accurately give that out and calculate tax rates, however they're going to calculate them, if this is going to be the basis, then they really need to support getting some people to have that information be valid and accurate. Otherwise the tax rates will never be accurate. So concerning for me. And should be for everyone, really. So overall, I know people like to kind of hear about how it impacts them or us homeowners. So taxes on a $200,000 homestead, you can see the decreases there in red. And these are estimates, obviously. These decreases would become even more significant if the yield changes, I believe. So Franklin would be decreasing 126, Highgate 222, and Swan would be decreasing approximately 83. I just like to point out the ballot language, since it is going to be different this year. We have that second piece now, so we would have our budget figure of the $50,956,879, and then the bottom we would have our per pupil education spending of $12,190, and that would be an increase of 2.89%. So this is what people would be voting on. And then I've heard a lot of conversations, and I think you've heard me say that I think we should focus on revenues a little bit also when we talk about this. So just a graphic to show that 78% of the funds that we spend for MVSD come from taxpayers on their property tax bills, but over 11 million comes from other sources, federal grants, local, different states funding that we have, our carryover that we anticipate every year that we really try to focus on to make sure we can offset some taxes and not get all the way to zero. So I just think it's information that is important to consider. And this is just a graphic, and this is in your board workbook also, but it's broken down by our fund balance, and it's changing from 25 to 26 just slightly. Local revenues are up a little bit. Local revenues are things like interest, ticket sales at games. State revenues are down slightly. Special education, as a lot of this increase is extraordinary reimbursement, so we know we just get a block grant for special ed now, so that does not increase as we spend more. But the extraordinary, the students that cost over that 65 or 68,000 now, we do get a reimbursement for that, and that has been increasing. And then the federal dollars, those are our IDEA B grants, CFP, and those types of things. And Medicaid is one of the big ones that's adding to that one this year, because we've been strategic with kind of using that.
Is there after-school program in that last column? Grant for
The
after-school.
Medicaid offset to the local share is in that number. That's all I had for that. Unless someone has questions.
Anybody have any questions for Laura?
A lot of good work. I like the one graph with the, in most basic terms, showing what it would actually do. I think more than anything, people will just look at that and understand it and be like, if that's true, that's good. So it's good work.
Totally different than that, where we were last year at this time.
Yeah.
Thank goodness, huh?
With
And I think it's
8 scenarios.
great that we were able to do it through attrition and, absorb some of that increase to health insurance and everything without major change, which is not the situation that most school districts are in right now.
No.
So,
So just looking for a motion to adopt.
The FY26 budget.
I'll make the motion to approve the FY26 budget as read. Do I need to read it?
Well, we're gonna read you probably wanna read the amount, but
amount,
then we're gonna
yeah.
approve the warning, which we then have to read.
Can you put the amount
yeah,
up?
I'll
Do I
put
have to
the
remember it?
warning up. Hold on 1 second. There we go. Can you see the amount? It's at
$50,956,879.
Correct. Yes,
So that's the first motion, and then we have to approve
the warning.
the warning. Can that be the same motion?
Nope, it should be separate now.
Yep. Would anybody like to second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Stephanie. Any questions? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Megan. Motion carries 9-0. All right.
We need to read the whole warning, right?
Yep.
Do you want me to read the whole warning? Or do you wanna read the whole warning?
I'll read it.
Go for it.
Yeah, I just want to
Make it
take the
really big.
watermark off so it's not draft anymore.
Alright, warning, annual meeting, Missisquoi Valley School District. The legal voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District, consisting of the towns of Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton, are hereby notified and warned to meet to transact the following business by Australian ballot in their respective polling places hereafter named for each of the above referenced towns on March 4th, 2025 at the polling places and times hereafter listed. We have to do the whole articles?
Yes.
Oh, here we go. Article 1, to elect from the legal voters of said districts the following officers. A moderator for the term of 1 year. B, a clerk for the term of 2 years. C, a treasurer for the term of 3 years. D, an MVSD school director for the term of 3 years for Franklin. E, an MVSD school director for the term of 3 years for Highgate. F, an MVSD school director for the remainder of a 3-year term from Highgate. And G, an MVSD school director for a term of 3 years from Swanton. Article 2, shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District approve the school's directors to expend $50,956,879, which is the amount the school directors have determined to be the necessary for the ensuing fiscal year. The district estimates that this proposed budget, if approved, will result in a per pupil educational spending of $12,190, which is 2.8% higher than the per pupil spending from the current year. Article 3. Shall the voters of the Missisquoi Valley School District authorize the Board of Directors of the said school district to borrow money to pay the current expenditures in anticipation of taxes and to sign notes for that purpose. Said persons and voters warned are fully further notified that the voter qualification, registration, absentee voting, and voter procedures shall be in accordance with Chapter 43 and 51 of Title 17 MVSD. The legal voters of the school district are further notified that an informational meeting will be held in person in Missisquoi Valley Union High School Library and electronically via Zoom on February 11th, 2025 at 7 p.m. for the purpose of explaining the budget items to the voters. The link to access this virtual meeting will be posted on the MVSD website, mvsdschools.org, and the MVSD social media prior to the meeting. And polling, do I need to read polling places and time?
You should, because.
Yeah, polling places and times. Franklin Town Hall, 5336 Main Street, Franklin, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Highgate Sports Arena, 243 Gore Road, Highgate Center, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And Swanton at the Swanton Village Municipal Complex, 1st and Elm Streets, Swanton, from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Dated this day.
And I actually have one here. We can pass it around and sign. That would allow me to get it moving.
I'll make the motion. The article as warned.
I will second that motion. Questions or comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Sorry. Thank you, Megan. Motion carries 9-0.
I have a sweet pen that I need back. I don't want to use it.
Thought it'd have a big feather on
Okay.
I want my sweet pen back
Yep.
too.
That's too much pressure.
it. I'm using an official school.
I love my sweet pen.
They sent me. Looks like me to buy them.
All right,
That
so
was a nice person today.
You told me that.
budget adoption,
You can
warning.
You can sign it.
So now we're on to committee updates.
Use it, it's a good thing.
And I'll start with student success.
You will?
I will.
She's,
Jeez, I'm signing.
Megan, yes, I need you to come in and sign.
So we met a couple weeks ago, and I do want to apologize to Rennick because he tried to join us and wasn't able to get in, so I'm
all good.
sorry.
I called, I texted, nothing.
No,
I
I
was
was
in the
in
other room.
It's fine. It's fine, you just ignored me. It's okay.
That's fine. That's what you
Put
should
that
do
in
when
the
you're in a
minutes,
meeting.
please, that Joanne ignored me.
No. So Beth Ann presented to us about the after-school program, and of course, you know, just it's doing great things. It was no surprise to us. She did bring us with a bunch of information of all the hoops she has to jump through to, you know, have some of the grants filled. I'm just gonna, I guess, answer, you know, Dawn's question, but repeat what Chris said earlier, because we did ask, you know, we know that it's a great program and we know that it's really important for the students, but what are your challenges, you know, what are their struggles? And exactly what was said earlier is just it's staffing, and it's also another part of it was transportation in the summertime, which leads back to staffing. So one of the things that we just talked about is, you know, trying to brainstorm different ways of maybe reaching out to the community, members in the community, to see if they can help with the staffing, you know, and not that the older generation has nothing else to do, but, you know, to reach out to that older generation that might be able to have a couple of hours in the later afternoon to come in, and they might have something, you know, special to offer, or just being able to be there, whether it might be a knitting class, it might be, you know, a unique cooking opportunity, and so, you know, Beth Ann was going to see a different means of reaching out to a different generation, you know, to see, you know, who could possibly come in and help in this area. So no surprise that it was a nice, you know, review from Beth Ann. And then Jen and Julie went over the VSAC results. So it was comparison to, so there was the senior survey that they took last summer. And I believe it was but like roughly 75% feedback from them. So that is great. Those numbers are on the up. And just asking them how they felt as far as, you know, being prepared for their future, what their thoughts were of their future, if they were, you know, committing to a school or work, ways that they felt that they would be able to finance schooling. There's just a lot of questions. I don't know if you're able to post this to or add it to the drive, to the board drive.
Can.
Sure.
But I mean, it's good. It's pretty good. So a lot of good questions and good
A lot of things to celebrate and a lot of highlights of things where we need to continue to work. But that aspirations group at MVU really examines that data really closely and using Beth Ann's programming that she's doing after school to bolster what the work-based learning work that's happening. All of those things are really moving things positively. We saw some big differences from one year to the next in some areas.
Just involvement.
Yeah.
Is there ever a point that we'll hear from like aspirations added to the board, something, or like a summary or something?
That would be nice.
Thank you, Joanne.
Sure. We meet again on the 12th. Text me before the meeting, Rennick, if you'd like to.
It's fine. It's okay. It's because the other meeting where you were trying to get into finance,
I know, wasn't
I
it?
answered and I was like, "Hey, Joanne needs to get on." But then I text you and it's like, "Nope." I'm not upset about it. It's okay.
It is my fault. I apologize.
Yeah.
All right, Peter for the facilities.
Not much new to update, although I probably should have said something before we approved the budget, but we did have to scale back the MVU roof a little bit due to financing. We're still doing another section, and we're doing the Highgate roof, but we had hoped originally to be able to do a larger section of the MVU roof, but
Which section are we doing now?
I don't know if we've officially decided which section it's going to be.
The one that, I'm gonna mess up the number, it's the one we originally planned to do and then we moved to the larger section. So it was, we're back to our original plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that was because we didn't have.
Basically, legal counsel was not willing to allow us to work with the USDA funding that we had secured for the last
Okay.
year.
All
So
right.
we now
That's all I need to know.
be paying a little more interest, so
Okay.
just moving things
All right.
around.
So we're
get it
basically
done.
on our original 5-year plan?
Yeah.
Yep.
Still
Okay.
accomplishing $8 million worth of work this summer.
Yep.
Good.
With no impact to the budget.
Thank you, Peter.
Yep.
And then finance committee.
We just did it. We just
Right.
adopted it.
I'm still gonna say
Nothing more to
finance
say.
committee and not jump over it, so.
Our job is done.
Yeah.
We're good now
Moving
till
on.
next year. So.
You hope it's done.
Well, we
It's
put
done.
this at February 11th. We have to have something ready to go.
Yes.
I know you probably have that in your back pocket, right?
Okay, sure, yeah. Yes, we do have the informational coming up. But I do trust Laura, JR and Julie working on that, and then
Got things started already.
we will present that. Are we meeting before? We're not meeting before the informational.
We've got a meeting on next week.
The board meeting is next week.
Yeah, we have a board meeting next week. Facilities doesn't meet till February 10th.
Board meeting next week.
Yeah.
February
Next
is
week,
1st and 3rd.
Yeah, we have a
Because
first
of
and third.
February
We don't have one
vacation.
for facilities at the moment because we
three
were
board
moving
meetings in a row.
around.
And then we have the informational.
For working on
The
this one.
informational.
Got it.
Right.
Yeah, so I don't expect any other meetings, until after town hall, and hopefully the budget passes. I was quite skeptical going into this year, but I really believe that if the community members understood this budget truly, that they would have no problem supporting it.
Well, I think we need to emphasize the property tax rate, the tax rate is going down.
Yep.
And I think that's, that certainly should be
Front and center.
front and center and big, bold and
One slide.
in our presentation.
One slide.
Yeah.
I need those numbers.
I mean, with all that we're doing, that's a pretty modest increase on per pupil spending, 2.89%. It's less than 3%.
Those were our goals, and we hit them, and
We've done a good job. I just hope everybody else thinks so.
we can celebrate after it passes.
I would just say that we're spending a lot of time, JR is spending a lot of time, and Julie's directed him to really create a budget page on our website that is super comprehensive. We're working on Q&As with Julie and I. All the OpenGov charts and graphs, so where you had a question at the input meeting around like breaking down the budget a little bit more with department budgets and stuff like that. All of that information we're gonna have front loaded into that website with a button on the front of the website. So just, if you hear a question, have questions, please point them there.
And we're gonna have the mailers and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I am surprised
Big
at how many
arrows.
people will come to meetings with that mailer.
It works,
So,
yeah.
okay. Well, we'll see. Thank you. And then if you do have questions about the informational, just email.
Send you a draft, yeah.
And will we have informational packets at the informational meeting? That was the issue last year. The
Printing out the presentation,
Yeah.
yes.
While we're here, do we wanna, for the informational, in terms of reading, doing what? Do you just want to have one person kinda go with it? Do you want me to just read the information and then we can answer questions as a group, just so we're clear before we start for the next time?
What are people's wishes?
I haven't seen the presentation, so I don't know.
You don't know what you wanna do? Well, I just wondered if we could at least.
Put the presentation out to everybody and then we have another board meeting next Tuesday so we can
Right.
discuss that.
That would be good.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll just add a line that, because we have one meeting before the informational.
Yes.
So we'll just discuss how we will present it. So we don't get those questions, emails all before, like, who's doing what?
I think it is good to split it up.
Yeah, I think
Because I think they like I don't know what they like, but they may like from different members.
That idea. Okay.
Perfect. Thank you, everybody. All right, next agenda item, statement from the board chair. So as discussed with you last week, I'm putting out for the public that I'll be stepping down for personal reasons. And my last meeting will be February 18th. And in discussion with Rennick and the superintendent, I would believe that the most transparent and open process would be to post publicly for interested parties from Highgate to submit a letter of interest to the superintendent, and the new board will interview and appoint a new board member for the remainder of my term.
And for the, well, like I said, I was thinking for the publics, how many years is there left in your term?
2.
2 years?
So we'll probably have plenty of time to get more meetings, but just appreciate that you took the chair job, and I know that's not an easy position. You've done it for the last 2 years, and just and all your time on the board. So just thank you for your work.
Alright, next agenda item.
Pete, I wish, okay, you're writing it, good, I was gonna say, that we need to have that statement in the minutes, yeah. Bonnie's on top of it.
Yeah, I'm on it.
And I'll just add, it's not easy to come to a decision like that, and I know that, I really appreciated working with you and having you on the board and what you contributed. Not happy about it, and it is a loss. It's hard to find people who want to be involved and contribute and do the work, and be a thankless job. So thank you for what you've done and time as chair and also all your time on the board. We will miss you. I'm not looking forward to that. So.
You can always come back, you're young enough.
This is true. Okay, so the next agenda item is future agenda items will be field studies presentation, negotiation updates, and legislative updates. Future board meeting will be February 4th, 2025 at the MVU Library at 6 p.m.
Can I added to the future agenda items the MVU aspirations? Is that okay? Because you guys had said that. Is that all right that I added that in here for the minutes? Okay.
Megan, you're right, the blurriness.
It's like good on one side
Can't
and on
even
the other
look
side
at
it's like
Makes my eyes hurt.
The owl has cataracts.
So next we have a leave of absence request with action, possible finding for executive session. Swanton principal candidate interview action, which would be another finding for executive session. So then we would have potential executive sessions for leave of absence and request and interview, as premature public knowledge would put one or more parties at substantial advantage.
See if I can do this. So
You got it at the end.
You got it.
I find, what am I finding? I'm finding that this is appropriate for,
These two agenda items.
yeah, these two agendas, appropriate for executive session.
Thank you, Peter.
I'll second.
Rennick will second that. And then all those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, Megan. Motion carries 9-0.
We're gonna invite people.
Yeah, well, so now we have to
Now you
make a motion.
Motion to go into executive session.
So I'll make a motion to go into executive session to cover the leave of absence request and the Swanton principal candidate interview. And who are we inviting in?
Well, how about this? Would we wanna do the interview first?
We can just get the letter done first.
Would that,
It's fine. You could invite in me and Bonnie for both, for the first topic, and then me and Yashua for the second conversation.
and then she'll just
Step
That's
out.
out.
okay, alright.
If that's your.
So I made the motion.
Yep, Peter made the motion, and I will second that motion, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
With Julie in the executive session.
That's a new eye.
I think Laura's.